Hi, I'm Boy from Bikel. This is Piet from Ere Research. We're going to talk about him and his company. We're very happy to have you here. Thanks for your time. How are you, Piet?
Good, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Had a good trip so far?
So far, yes. Yesterday I arrived from Switzerland and it's not such a far drive for us, only 2 hours. Traffic was okay. Even this morning, so it's a fun start of the show, for sure.
That's good beginning, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So, you have been a professional cyclist for some years, right?
Yes.
And I became curious to when I heard that. What team have you been riding for, and how was that experience as a pro?
Well, as in our days, we only had, let's say, professional cyclists and we had amateur cyclists. So nowadays, you don't have that difference anymore. You have continental, pro-continental, and pro tour riders.
Yeah.
So you would probably have to gauge where I rode in the continental region, so not pro tour but continental level, and that was great. We had some good results. I had a lot of fun riding, but I had to stop my racing because I had some health issues with my heart, and that took me off the bike, but put me into the bicycle industry. So it's not all bad. Of course, your health is the only thing you have.
Exactly.
But if you get something in return and you get to put your heart into the product instead of on the bicycle, that's also good. And I really took advantage of that.
Yeah, because as a rider, I can imagine you always want the best material, and as a pro, you can get the best material.
Yeah.
That's of course one of the big advantages. Right. Let's talk about your CV, because you have a very impressive CV. I think senior product developer at Specialized, product director at Sell Italia. This knowledge has come to me thanks to the internet, and now CEO of Ere Research, your own company. What made you decide to start Ere Research? Start for yourself.
To be honest, I've done so many development projects in bicycle industry, but also in Formula One and in aerodynamics. And when you do so many projects for other brands and you achieve with completing a successful project, and then you get invited by better projects, by better companies, so it takes you a little bit step up. You start with a mediocre project, you develop yourself into making the best projects. So that's how I more or less went from one company to another, being invited to do projects for them. At one point in your career you think, okay, I've done all that, what else, right? Another project or another brand. Really the next step is do your own project, see if you can do it for yourself, which takes you to another level, because there's much more involved than just making the product. There's also setting up a company involved, there's setting up a business structure involved, there's many things involved, and really that's my challenge today. Yeah.
That's an interesting one. Before we go deeper into Ere Research, you mentioned different techniques from or different industries, adjacent industries like the automotive and the aerospace. Is it possible also to combine techniques you got from there and to implement it in the bicycle industry? How does that work?
It works quite well, because a piece of material is a piece of material. Whether you use it in a car or you use it in aerodynamics, it's all making product together out of resources, ground resources. One industry uses it in another way than another. Forces are quite different in the industry. To give you an example, we were invited to work on a Formula One team. We were interested in using their aerodynamic and their engineering capabilities because we didn't have that in bicycle industry. What they wanted is to set their mind off the Formula One car for a couple of hours per week, working on something completely different, not thinking about that fast car, thinking about the bicycle. But because that made them think differently again when they came back to the car. So it's really the thinking of an engineering group sometimes needs a distraction in order to think about something really simple or different, in order to get a fresh idea on what they're actually doing on a daily basis. That works for automotive, looking at bicycle industry, but it also works for bicycle industry looking at automotive, which is getting closer and closer at the moment, as we know.
Exactly, Okay, well, thanks. I was so curious about that. I had to ask.
Yeah.
So let's go back to Ere Research. What I find really intriguing is that you use Latin words to make your name, the brand name.
Yeah.
For example, you have tenere, which means grab.
Yeah.
Sedere means sit. Libere means to be free, and vincere to win.
Yeah.
Could you explain me why you took those Latin words and applied that in your name?
Okay. Well, everything we do today and all our let's say our worldwide languages somehow grab back to the Latin meaning of them. That's why Latin is still being educated in medicine and used in medicine, but also on universities as a really direction of learning. If you're trying to find a brand name, it's nice if you can have a story behind it that explains what you want to express with your brand name.
Yeah.
I took the Latin side of it because I was just looking at names. So how can I come up with a name that makes sense, but that I can also build upon? I mean, in Latin, if I use the word pontus, pontus in Latin means bridge over water. This is a tire we made that is working really well in wet conditions, in water. So that's how you connect the Latin names and the sub-names for your categories into your product. So let's say if somebody would Google that name of my tire and they would find actually an explanation about the product itself. And I didn't do that. That's already existing.
The Latin language did that for you.
Did that for me, yeah. It's just I'm applying it in a way that makes sense for my product. Yeah.
That's a clever way of applying language to products.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, you have here two things which I'm really curious about. So, can I open it?
Yeah, sure, open it. Go ahead. Yeah. Just slide it apart.
Slide it. So this is a tire. It's a racing tire, right?
It's a road racing tire, performance racing tire.
Performance racing tire.
Yeah.
Please explain me this. It looks like a snake, but it's
it's a black snake actually.
Yeah.
Well, the thing with tires is, I mean, when we came into thinking about, now we have a brand name, we have names, we have a logo, we thought of all of that. What's the first category that we want to attack? We basically thought let's look for a category that we think could use some attention. A category that's maybe underutilized or underused. And when you walk into a bicycle shop, you see all kinds of beautiful products. You see beautiful computers in nice boxes. You see carbon cranks in nice boxes. But if you look at a wall, you see tires wrapped up like that with the price around them.
Yeah.
That's not really, that's not really a representable way of selling a product.
Yeah.
I thought. That was my opinion. So we thought, let's look at it that way. Let's pick up the tire and make it into a better product, a better representable product, and a product that explains the user experience much better, because people want to know what they're riding. Okay. So first we went after, let's design tread patterns that people can identify with. If I show you this pattern, right? You know this from your car tire. You know this from your Formula 1 tires, the tires you look at more often than your cycling tire.
If I had a car, I would probably know what you were talking about.
Right, exactly. Now, this is a tire that explains that it diverts water and it has a lot of grip on the edges. So if I tell you that this works very well in wet conditions, you are inclined to accept that.
Yeah.
To say, yes, that makes sense because I see that. Well, this works for wet roads, but then we also have tread patterns that explain grip very well or aerodynamics very well and all those kind of things. Of course, the rubber is the most important of the tire. But I've had proto teams approach me saying, hey, Piet, we want to test your tires because we think you're really onto something here. Because we can tell the best rider in the Tour de France that this is the fastest tire and you have to ride this. If I can also make him believe that visually, I win even more. Because between the ears, there's more reason to believe than the touch of the product. And that's what we're trying to convey to the consumers. Hey, This is the experience, that's the intended use of the product. We show you by design, then we package it nicely, so
Very
it's a
nicely.
representable product. And not only a tire comes with this package, I mean, if you lift the lid up here, there's an inner,
Secret pocket.
there's an inner tube, there's a product card that explains the whole product and the use. There's
I hear something.
there's a valve extender and stickers, you know, basically the same experience that you have when you bought your phone, your first iPhone or your first Samsung phone.
Is that where the inspiration came from? From tech
because
products?
when I bought my first iPhone, the 3S, which is now 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago.
Probably.
That's how old I get, right?
Do you still have it, by the way?
I still have it.
It's becoming a collector's item, right?
Oh god, so maybe I should sell it. No, the thing is, you unbox that and you go through the box. There's stickers, there's headphones, there's all kinds of things that make it special.
Yeah, it's a real experience.
It's a real experience, so why should we sell a product like this wrapped up with a price? I think the consumer nowadays expects a lot more from a brand than just a product.
Yeah.
The product is number one, it has to work and it has to function. But everything else that we can do by explaining the user experience by design, by adding extra product and by giving him the full experience, we think that that has value today. That's important.
Sure thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we have here another beautiful piece. It's so light. It's like lifting a feather. It's really impressive.
It's 123 grams. This is our first saddle. I've been making saddles for just about anyone in the market. Yeah, I can name all the names, but I could better name the names that I didn't make saddles for them. I'd be done quicker. But anyway, I'm a saddle guy from origin. Yeah. And this is my first saddle for my own brand. It's called the Genus.
Genus.
The Genus saddle. It's a saddle that's highly innovative, because if you want to make another saddle, you have to bring added value. Otherwise, I'm just making another product. Yeah. This saddle is different in many ways. First of all, in saddle land, fit is very important. Nobody is alike. I mean, my pelvis and my anatomy is different than yours, different than everybody in this room. Okay. So what I need to do was first need to make sure that I have all the sizes. And usually saddles come in 3 sizes, 3 widths. Yeah, that's normal. My saddles too. My saddles come in 133, 145, and 157 millimeter. But now I'm also adding the length. You can buy also this saddle in 240 millimeters or 270 millimeters. Okay. So instead of making all different kinds of models, I'm doing a lot of sizing in one saddle, which makes it very easy to understand for the consumer what he needs to choose.
And is it also, how do you say, customizable? So I want a very broad saddle, but very short as well?
Yeah, exactly. You can get all that.
Okay.
Yeah. Then if I flip it around, you see that the saddle is very different than your usual saddle. You see the inserts here are very placed backward. The rail is made out of carbon. There's a torsion bar here to make it stronger laterally. But there's also what we call it a comfort trigger. So what this does, this trigger changes the tension in the saddle. So if I flip this switch backward, I'm changing the tension between the saddle rail and the saddle cover. Okay. So that means, let's say, when you're going from nice asphalt roads onto cobblestones, I can change the tension while driving by clicking this, and all of a sudden I have more comfort in my saddle.
Do the pros know that? Because I think in Paris-Roubaix they will love it.
They might love it. They might love it. Yeah, I have some pro riders that are riding my saddles that are testing them. So it's if you want more comfort, either from changing roads, or you feel you're riding for 6 hours, you want a different tension, you can change that. Yeah. If you're going uphill, a lot of riders lower their seat post. Well, when we're in competition, you don't lower your seat post. You can't. No. But you can change the tension in your saddle. Your saddle will drop 2-3 millimeters, and all of a sudden you have a different position going up, and your power output is much higher as well.
That's ingenious, I must say.
That's why it's called the Genus.
Yeah, I was just about to ask the Latin name, what it referred to, but it's Genus, genius.
It's the Genus.
Awesome.
And this is the first one. Then this is the flat saddle. Then the second one is coming early next year, which is more curved version, a pre-curved, which has the same sizing. So really, from 2 saddle models, I can serve the whole performance market, and I'm not cluttering the wall in the bike shop with a bunch of models.
So it is clean. It's innovative.
Yeah. easy to understand, easy to choose.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and the bicycle dealer or the bike fitter, they don't have to, seek through 20, 30 models to find the right model.
Just two, and that's it.
Just two, and find the right choice. Choose a choice in saddle, and that's it.
Yeah.
The size, I have to say.
Yeah, right size.
Yeah.
I want to talk about something completely different because I've seen some of your YouTube videos. You have your own YouTube channel,
Mm-hmm.
and on that I learned, for instance, the difference between 120 TPI vulcanized tires and 340 TPI handmade. Please don't go into detail with that with me. But how important is the use of social media for your brand and for yourself?
It's quite important. It gives us a direct way to communicate with our consumers.
Mm-hmm.
The videos that I made come from consumer questions.
Uh-huh.
I mean, they send me an email, or they reply to a photo or a comment, and they say, "Listen, I got this 120 TPI tire from you, but my neighbor is saying that 340 TPI is better." Okay, that there's an opportunity for me to explain the difference between those tires and why we use 120 TPI opposed to using 340 TPI.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you use different technologies for different reasons, but sometimes technologies are mixed for no reason.
Yeah.
And if that is the case, you need to explain to the consumer, this is the reason why we do this. And nothing explains it better than a small video of 30, 40 seconds, and that'll be it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be in a fancy studio. I just put my iPhone in my workshop and I'll make a video.
Yeah.
That's how easy it is.
That's how easy it can be.
That's how easy it can be.
Yeah. And how does it help you understanding the customer or the customer understanding you? I mean, you're explaining it, but does it also sales-wise, for instance, how does it help you or the company?
I think it helps the company in terms of sales that we're real.
Mm-hmm.
We're not trying to sell you something.
Mm-hmm.
We're helping you to explain how the product works.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm a consumer myself. I'm a cyclist.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see my job as my job. It's my hobby, and I'm a cyclist just like you are.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to connect in that way because I'm explaining a fellow cyclist how things work and why we do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, and that's why I said before, when working for other companies, you get a task, and this is what we want you to do.
Mm-hmm.
Now you do it from your own experience and from your heart, and you can also get to talk about it that way.
Yeah.
And nothing is more convincing, I think, than when you're talking to the creator itself. And I'm trying to help you explain it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to help you understand why I made the product, because I made it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't make products for me. I make products for my market. I have to like them, but I'm not the market anymore. I'm not that guy that goes downhill with 90k an hour anymore. I'd love to, but not anymore.
We've been speaking about innovations, technology. We are here at Eurobike. We see that there have also been some changes. For example, the change of date, the change of look and feel, and the exclusion of Consumers Day this year. What do you think about? What is your take on these changes surrounding Eurobike?
I think for Eurobike, but a trade show in general, it's very difficult to find what it needs to be. The market has changed so fast over the last 10 years, and it's been snowballing, so the changes go faster. For a trade show to anticipate on that, looking 2 or 3 years ahead in terms of how they do their date planning, how they do their approach in terms of agenda and schedule and who needs to be at the show, it's extremely difficult. It's almost impossible to make the right decision, to make everybody happy. So I think Eurobike and the trade shows in general need to really listen about the market behind the market, if you know what I mean. Because right now we have the visual market that we look at today when we're walking around the show, but then there's the market behind it, the market that's not here, that doesn't have a booth, that are players in the market. There's a reason they're not here. Maybe they'd like to be, but they're not. So how to either include them, either in the show aspect of it, or include them in another format, we don't know, but we can't ignore it. And I think that's a very hard one to figure out for Eurobike, even for Taichung Bike Week. I mean, I've been the creator of Taichung Bike Week, and it's very hard to find the right balance in between what the market wants, because you can't satisfy everyone, and there'll always be an opportunity to improve. And I just think that the most important thing that the organizers of Eurobike can do is, okay, they understand what their booth owners want in this show, but you know that. Go to the market that's not here, talk to them.
That's an interesting take.
Yeah.
Time's almost up, so I have saved the easiest question for last, of course. If you could change the industry yourself, how would you do that?
If I could change the industry myself, how would I do that? That's a very difficult question.
I know, that's why I saved it for last.
If I could change the industry, I would most likely try to unite national bike organizations into making cycling safer in areas where it's not safe yet. Because if people feel inclined to ride their bike because they are safe or protected in the area that they're riding, everybody would benefit for that. I come from a country, Holland, where I'm very fortunate to have a perfect network of cycling lanes and protected by law. So I am very happy to send my children to school on the bicycle. But I also lived in Italy. I also lived in California. I also live in Switzerland. And that's a different situation. And if we want to improve cycling or the industry around the world, we need to look at the core of where we are riding on bicycles. That's the most important thing, I think. The product is another thing. That's just a passion. But if we want to get people to ride their bicycles, we need to make it safer for them to ride their bicycles.
So let's make the road safe again.
Let's make the road safe again.
Thank you so much, Piet.
All right. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
All right.